Hey guys, it's Rhonda with Blessed in the Mess, and as you know, lately I've been sharing with you red flags, um, signs that you may be dealing with someone who is narcissistic or Jezebelic, if you will. There are some signs, and guys, I saw all these signs in the very beginning of a relationship. And I ignored them. I discounted them. I shoved them under the rug. I didn't understand them. I didn't know that collectively, when you put them all together, you get a personality disorder. I did not know that. And it's taken me a long time to figure it out. And so, as you know, the mission of this page is to help inform you. If I can help you prevent getting into the mess that I had, then I've done my job. So I want to just take a moment though and say that it is always my goal and it is my intention to help you by sharing my story, but it is in no way to attack the man that my husband was. I'll be honest, when I began to understand what was going on with him, I knew God was going to call me to talk about it to people. I knew He was. I knew that was the whole purpose for it. I knew. And, you know, I'm like, how am I going to go talking about all of this information that I feel is so important for people to know about while he could hear it? He could hear me talk about it. It might set him off if he finds out that I'm exposing him. Is my child going to be safe if I start sharing this information with people? I did not know how God was going to have this come about. I just knew that He was going to. I just didn't know when, I didn't know how, I didn't know what it was going to look like. And as you know, if you've been following this page and you understand my story, you know that my husband died about 4 months ago. So, you know, that concern that I had is no longer a concern. I'm not concerned about him anymore and how he would respond to me sharing the nightmare that he literally took me through. Let's just be real. But I know he still has family and friends who adored him and loved him. And I know that a lot of this is probably not going to be easy for them to hear because he did all of this in my home with me and my kids. And a lot of people did not see all of this. And so they're not going to understand it. He made sure that when he left this house that he put on a mask that showed the world he was a different person. It's just the truth. And I, being in his life, his wife, every day, seeing this behavior, seeing him act out, I was the one that got the brunt of it, and I'm the one that got to experience it. The first 3 years of our marriage, he was really bad off with his drinking, and he had very little contact with friends and couldn't keep a job, and he spent a lot of time here in the house and drinking a lot. So I got to see the really worst of it for 3 years, and then of course he went into recovery for 2 years, and that's when this whole other mask got put on and he went out into the world and performed basically, you know, like he was a great husband and great father and this, that, and the other. And he did have some good qualities as far as being a father to our son. He definitely adored him and loved him, and you know, I can't complain about that for the most part. Other things I can share with you later, but he definitely struggled with something, and as I've come to believe, he was a narcissist and struggled with the spirit of Jezebel and Leviathan. And as you know, my goal with Blessed in the Mess is to merge the psychology world with the spiritual world, connect that narcissism is basically a highly manipulative Jezebel spirit, and there is help and healing for those people that want deliverance. And that's why I'm here sharing my story. So with that said, it is never my intention to hurt anyone with this information. I can only share what I know. Okay, I can only share my testimony. That's all I can do. You know, he exhibited a lot of behaviors that finally made me realize what we were dealing with. But then there are some things that he didn't do that a lot of narcissists do. So every individual is unique, and so I can't share with you, I mean, I could share with you things that he didn't do that other narcissists might do, but I'm not going to necessarily have a story about it, or can I relate to it. He was not a very flashy narcissist. You know, he didn't drive a fancy car and wear expensive clothes. He actually would prefer to be in baggy clothes, comfortable clothes. You know, he'd go to the Goodwill and buy t-shirts. I mean, that wasn't his thing. But a lot of narcissists are like that. And there are lots of types of narcissists, and I will be sharing a lot of that with you too. But today, the red flag that I saw early on was they will name drop, and they have a tendency to want to, for instance, they want to be buddies with the pastor of the church, or they want to be buddies with the owner of the business. They like to rub elbows and get to the leadership. And this is the spirit of Jezebel right here that does this. This is highly Jezebelic. And they're more concerned with rubbing elbows with the shepherd than they are mingling with the sheep, if you will. So I saw this early on when he was at his first rehab, and I saw this continue throughout our relationship. The first time I began to see it was when he went to the first rehab. He had a job where he had to leave and go out of the rehab for the day and work, and he was a janitor at a high school. And this was a well-known high school, very known for its athletics. And he became buddy-buddy with the principal, and people would know who I was talking about if I mentioned his name. He talked about the guy a lot and bragged about how he could go in his office and sit down and talk to him, and he was really being kind of welcomed in by this gentleman and the staff. And he ended up having the opportunity to go while he was still in rehab. He talked his way into being able to go with the football team to the Superdome to play like a playoff game. And he was on the sideline, like in the shirt that belonged to the school, like a football, coach. And he went and he just fit right in with that team. And I went to the game and took pictures. I was just so proud of him, everybody liked him and they took him in. And this was like something that the rehab had never allowed before. He's the janitor, okay? He's the janitor, and now he's like one of the team on a Friday night. Didn't have to go to Bible study, at rehab that night. They let him go with the big wigs, And I just thought it was kind of funny at the time, I'm like, look at this guy. He just weaseled his way right on in there. Everybody just loves him. And he was charming like that. He could charm his way into anything. And he did. It started very early on. He would take pictures with, if he came across anybody that was famous while he was out and about, he was always taking pictures with him, and well-known football players, or he's seen a few movie stars, I've seen pictures, he just always wanted to be with those people. And he really didn't want anything to do with the little people, if you want to just be real. He would always become buddy-buddy with the pastor at the churches he would go to. Like, he could tell me, names of pastors. Couldn't tell me anybody that went to the church, but he was good friends with pastors, and I watched that happen. he was good friends with, people who owned businesses. And one time he had an opportunity to get up and speak while he was in recovery, and the first thing he talked about was a famous person that he knew. And it was just like, really? Like, you name dropping? From what I have read and what I have witnessed, how this works is they have this way of seeing people on like a totem pole. They view people like this, and they want to go to the top. They want to be with the people on the top. They don't care about the people on the bottom. And their ultimate goal is to study people who are at the top, because they want to be like them, but ultimately they want to be better than them. So they want to learn everything they can about you. They study you, and then their goal is to be better than you. And I saw this this attempt of him trying to do this. And just with conversations that we had and behaviors that he had, I could see this. I didn't know what he was doing. I mean, I didn't know this was a characteristic or a trait of a narcissist. I didn't know that. I just thought, this is his personality. This is just who he is. It's not a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing that you aspire to be like someone, or you want to get to know someone who is doing something that you are wanting to do. Like he wanted to be a preacher or a pastor. So it's not wrong that he wanted to go after those people. What's wrong is the way he treated the people that were like him, that were among him. He didn't have much respect for those people. He backstabbed some of those people. So I saw it, but I didn't know what it was while I was witnessing it. And it wasn't until later on, when I started studying and trying to understand who he was and what he was all about and what was motivating him to do some of the things that he was doing, and I started researching, and I came across the narcissism and stuff, that I realized, wow, this is another one of those things. And I saw it in the very beginning, and I just didn't know what it was. I just didn't know it was going to fit in this basket that is labeled narcissism. So if you see somebody who exhibits this behavior, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a narcissist or they're, being controlled by the Jezebel spirit. But if you start seeing a lot of red flags, then you know that you got to check this thing out a little bit more. And protect yourself from this. You don't want to get involved with somebody like this. If anything, you want to help them understand what they're doing and help them get delivered. You just don't even want to get into a very personal relationship with someone who is struggling with this. This is toxic. This is what a lot of toxic, unhealthy, emotional abuse relationships are dealing with. They're dealing with this spirit, and they're dealing with, as the psychology world would say, a narcissistic person. So I hope that helps you. I hope you're not going through it. Like I always say, I don't want anybody going through all this craziness. But if you're starting to see this, or you've been seeing this, this is a sign. This is not a good thing. They also have a tendency to want to be associated with institutions, businesses. They want to be known for having supported different institutions, like a particular football team or a particular business that's known in the community. And they like to kind of be associated with things like that because they think that gives them notoriety or somehow inflates their ego or strokes their ego or feeds their narcissistic supply of feeling valued. This is really, sadly, part of the root of this disorder is the strong need to be wanted and valued. This is a self-esteem issue in a lot of ways, and it establishes early in childhood, and it's just a child who grows up, and somehow the enemy uses an experience or abusive parents or something that causes them to not feel valued. And so they try all these crazy tactics and behaviors to feel valuable and worthy and wanted. And that is the saddest part of all of this, is that it's really just, it develops from a wounded child who just didn't know how to cope with rejection or abandonment, or not fitting in, because maybe they were different. And so it's very sad. It's very sad. We have to, as parents, protect our children the best that we can. I know it's hard. Oh, I don't look forward to it with my 5-year-old starting all over, trying to go through school, and I did that with my 2 older kids. It's hard. It's tough raising kids, man. You don't know what the world's going to do to them, how it's going to affect them and hurt them and harm them, and what the enemy's going to use to try to take your kid out. So it's a very sad thing, but it's kind of like, as an adult, when they become adults, they're trying to rub elbows with whoever's in charge. But as children, like teenagers, they're trying to fit in the cool club. It's a popularity thing. And as maybe a parent of a teenager or, preteen, and you start seeing, that your child is going through this, trying to fit in and trying to be in the cool group or whatever, you might be having some of this kind of stuff starting, where they don't want to be around, people who aren't, popular. So it could be some of this going on too. So I hope that helps. Just another red flag to look for. As always, I thank you for letting me share. I thank you for watching. And in the meantime, stay blessed in your mess. I'll be back again with some more red flags. Thanks.